And he comes back into Capernaum. Now, this is more of a typical routine because it gives an idea. As he went on from there, from Capernaum, he's coming back into town. We understand this situation that happens in verse 9b. He saw a man named Matthew sitting at a tax collector's booth. Now, what has happened is he's been on a trip. He's coming back into town. And the way that Galilee works when we lived there, it was interesting because there's a lot about the Bible that's just assumed because the people live there. You have these mountains that come down and pour into the Sea of Galilee, which is a large inland lake, a freshwater lake. And of those, they call them wadis. They're like, we call them springs and creeks, or we call them runoff, from the mountain snows or from the rainfalls. And whenever it rains in the mountains, there'd be these torrents that would come down and flow into the Sea of Galilee. But what would happen is, the Roman culture had built bridges, small bridges, pedestrian bridges across these gullies or ravines. And what would happen is the tax collector would sit there and he would collect taxes to pay for that bridge and to pay for all the other development that the Roman culture had. And so the tax collectors would get there strategically because if you didn't get in a place, people would go around you, right? That would make sense. But they couldn't because it wasn't very easy. They would have to go way up into the mountains and then cross ravines, and it was a logical thing to sit there at the bridge. And so this guy Matthew is sitting outside of Jesus' hometown, or his Operation Ministry Center, his HQ, and he's collecting taxes. And probably Jesus had encounters with this guy multiple times. This probably wasn't the first time encounter. And so he's sitting there collecting taxes for Rome. They would collect, first of all, a bridge tax, and then you'd also have like a food tax, and you might have a fruit tax. You'd have surcharges for anything you had in your hands. And it was just frustrating. Because you just went down the road and you came back and had to pay this tax every time you came or went. And so these guys were hated and they were despised because Rome had them as a vassal state. And so they just hated these tax collectors. In fact, tax collectors could not go to the temple. They couldn't worship. They had no ability to have church. They had no ability to have community. People would cut them out. And so Jesus comes to this tax collector, this guy Matthew, sitting at this booth. Now, Jesus says two words to him, and the two words could have been typically, you rotten traitor, you scoundrel scum, there's a lot of words they could say, but Jesus says two words to him here. Now, we have to understand that Jesus probably had many encounters with many tax collectors. If you walked through the region, you dealt with tax collectors all the time. They were everywhere. Every road had a tax collector on it, just about. Every area had a tax collector in it. And oftentimes, remember Jesus, he sent his disciples out to go fishing to catch fish. And in that fish's mouth is a coin to pay the taxes. But this guy, Jesus says something to this tax collector. He doesn't say to anybody else except for one of the guys named Zacchaeus, who's another tax collector. Anyway, Jesus comes to him and says these two words in Matthew 9:9c. It's two words. He says, "Follow me." Matthew had probably never considered those two words, ever. I mean, Matthew had it made. He had a full income. He had no manual labor ahead of him. He had bought the rights of this tax collecting booth. He was paying off Rome for those rights. He would his kids would inherit it. His kids would be set. This was a deal, a sweet, sweet deal for him and every generation following, because Rome was going to be in power for another 400 years. And so this was the deal. But Jesus says, here's the offer I give you. Give this up and give up the inheritance of your kids and your grandkids and your great-great-grandkids. Come and follow me. Now, when a guy would get up from a tax collector's booth, it means that you would abdicate that. Someone would take it over. There would be someone gladly moving into place the next day. And Jesus could have said a lot of things to him. He could have said, if you follow me, you're going to be a martyr. You're going to give your life. It's going to take everything you own. You're going to give up your security, your income. You're going to have to face Rome. You're going to face Rome. You're going to win, but you're going to be martyred for your faith. We're going to be on the biggest, most amazing, life-changing process anyone in history has ever or ever will see. But he didn't say that. He could have said you're going to have to leave everything, but he didn't say that. And he could have said, you are a man with no ethics. You're going to have to clean up your act. You're going to have to get your stuff together. You're going to have to, here's your change orders. Here's your punch list. Here's what's involved in following me. But he didn't say that. Why? Because Matthew didn't have any capacity to understand it. Other than just follow me and you're going to find the things you've been looking for. You have to trust it. You have to just have confidence. Here's the problem. In our churches, so oftentimes we set people up in a way that they can't handle. They can't navigate they can't understand what the invitation is. If we dump an entire dump truck on them, if Jesus would have said, you're going to be martyred, you're going to have to give everything, he would have said, no thanks, next, I'll keep collecting taxes. He'd have passed on it. If Jesus would have said, you got to change your stuff, you got to get your act together, you got to clean it up, no thanks, next. But he had never thought about, Matthew had never thought about the opportunity, that he had the opportunity to live differently, to think differently, to respond. It's an invitation. He gives him an invitation. Not based on any conditions. Not if you do this then. When this happens then. It was just follow me. Follow me. He didn't say first go, first attend to this, first. Here's the problem. A lot of times people feel bait and switched in the Christian faith. We share it's grace. You don't have to do anything to deserve it. It's just a free gift. Now that you've done this free gift thing, here's all the things. And here's the rule list. And they have no capacity. They didn't have capacity in the first 5 minutes, nor do they have the capacity now. Why? Because it's just something it's foreign to us. It's not what Jesus ever did. He didn't give us the rule list. He simply said, follow me. Now, did Matthew give his life? Did he give everything? Absolutely. He died a martyr's death. He sacrificed everything. He lived a radically committed life. But you don't start there. You can't start. There's no power to start there. There's no capacity to start there. The start has to be, check this out. Come and follow. Not clean up your act. Not make all the changes. Not, it's up to you. Now reach down and get some willpower. I can change. I can be a good person. I can be a better person. It's not daily. Jesus didn't say daily, be more moral than you were yesterday. If you're just incrementally more moral. Incrementalism is not the solution. It's not getting your gooder engine going. A little bit gooder. Trying to get gooder. I'm gooder. Not that. It's follow. It's just follow. That's all it is. It's so possible. It's so easy. It's so refreshing. But yet, the goal is just to get started. Because when you get started, something happens when you get started. It's significant. Have you noticed? If you've ever taken a trip, you go through all the mental checklist of all the things you got to do. My family never did. We just kind of grabbed one pair of underwear, maybe a toothbrush, and we were gone. But that's okay. But now I have a wife who plans, and she's taught me you take vacations with planning. You tell the family where you're going at least several days in advance. You don't do the abduction vacations. Whenever I was a kid, family vacations usually was surrounded by cattle auctions. We'd go to a cattle auction and then we would go to a beach. We'd go to cattle auctions near beaches. I don't know. I know it's not normal. I thought it was normal. I just thought that's the way everybody did vacations. But I lived in a place where even cattle auction vacations were cool. So anyway, I know we all live differently. We have different, but here's the deal. Jesus invites us on a road trip. And he says the goal is just to get started, just to get jump-started. In Matthew 9:10, he says, while Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house. Now, whoa! What just happened here? What was the verse before that? Follow me! He says, get up, leave this booth, come and follow me. And then we find, there's a period in the capital while Jesus was having dinner. What's going on? There's something that's happened. There's a shift that's just happened. Because he said, basically, we're having dinner at your house. Who's going to be invited? Anybody you want to invite. Well, the only people I associate are people that can't go to church. That's cool.